eating baby, drinking baby's blood. We kill, we sacrifice the baby, we do sex to the babies, when we're done.
The evidence, who knows what is going on, is trying to invoke the fifth to buy her clemency. So let's be clear on what we saw here today. This was an effort to essentially try to secure her pardon by keeping her mouth shut.
Evil also is resident in certain spiritual entities that are even now, I think, and have always been at work in the planet, but are on hyperdrive in the time we're living.
Welcome to the sacrificed.
The doomsday clock has now moved closer to midnight than ever before. The clock is meant to rate how close humanity is from ending. It is now sitting at 85 seconds to midnight. The bulletin of the atomic scientists saying reasons for moving the clock forward include risks of nuclear war, climate change, potential use of biotechnology, and the rising use of artificial intelligence.
Starting next week, my government will implement the following actions. First, we will change the law in Spain to hold platform executives legally accountable for many infringements taking place on their sites. This means that CEOs of these techno platforms will face criminal liability for failing to remove illegal or hateful content. And for that, we governments need to stop turning a blind eye to the toxic content shared under their watch. Second, we will turn algorithmic manipulation and amplification of illegal content into a new criminal offense. Disinformation doesn't appear by itself. It is created, promoted, and spread by certain actors. We will go after them as well as after the platforms whose algorithms amplify the disinformation for profit. No more hiding behind code. No more pretending that technology is neutral. Third, we will implement a hate and polarization footprint, a system to track, quantify, and expose how digital platforms fuel division and amplified hate. For too long, hate has been treated as invisible and untraceable. But we will change that, developing a tool that will provide the basis for undertaking future penalties. Because spreading hate must come at a cost. A legal cost, of course, a financial cost, and a moral cost that platforms can no longer afford to ignore. Fourth, Spain will ban access to social media for minors under the age of 16. Platforms will be required to implement effective age verification systems, not just checkboxes, but real barriers that work. Today, our children are exposed to a space they were never meant to navigate alone. A space of addiction, abuse, pornography, manipulation, violence. We will no longer accept that. We will protect them from the digital Wild West. Fifth and last, my government will work with our public prosecutor to investigate and pursue the infringement committed by Grok, TikTok, and Instagram. We will have zero tolerance on this matter, and we will defend our digital sovereignty against foreign coercion.
Evil is the absence of good, which is essentially true, but evil also is resident in certain spiritual entities that are even now, I think, and have always been at work in the planet, but are on hyperdrive in the time we're living right now. What's even worse, I think, about this personality is that he hates you. He really does hate you. I mean, there's not a gracious, kind, loving, sympathetic thought at all. That he finds great pleasure from your sufferings and your hardships. And if for no other reason, not because you were necessarily virtuous, because he even hates the non-virtuous person, simply because we are made in the image of the one that he hates the most, and that is God. He says in verse 8 that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray, he was hurled to the earth and his angels with him. Essentially, he is disrobed and exposed so he can no longer disguise himself as an angel of light. His true character becomes more and more revealed, that he is a vicious, raging, voracious, monstrous source of unlimited evil, responsible for all of the death and the disease and the destruction that we see around the world. That he's no longer compose himself as an angel of light at this point of the tribulation, but he is exposed for who he is, an enormous, horrible dragon. But until then, he remains dangerous, as Peter warns us again in 1 Peter 5:8. He's prowling around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. So we never should underestimate him. In fact, when Paul wrote to the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians 2:11, he says, we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. And yet, so often, I don't know that we can call it ignorance or just distraction. That we could get so caught up in the motion.
I don't know that we can call it ignorance or just distraction. That we could get so caught up in the motion.
Clearly, other people that might be on the client list, that are on text messages and emails, over-redaction, dramatic over-redaction, it looks like intentionally so, and then documents that are still redacted. And when we asked why these were redacted, that's because they were submitted into this electronic system redacted, and the people that were at our disposal to ask those questions did not know why they were still redacted, Jake.
Every now and then, the hard-left media surprise you by putting to air something that is actually insightful, rational, and balanced. I guess even a broken clock is right twice a day, and MSNBC were right when they featured journalist Anand Giridharadas, who had this to say about the latest revelations in the Epstein files.
Sets of emails. This is from Catherine Rumler, who worked as Barack Obama's White House counsel, Democratic administration, White House counsel, lawyer representing the American presidency. Now, in the way that is normal in American life, she's the chief lawyer for Goldman Sachs.
Yeah. Wow.
And they're trading advice. She's getting his advice on, should I become attorney general? She's taking the advice of a convicted sex offender on should I accept Barack Obama's potential offer to be attorney general. And he's telling her, she's giving him advice about his situations in life. And in this very striking scene, she describes driving up to New York, and she says, I will stop at a rest stop at some point in New Jersey on my way up to New York, and I will see, no doubt, all these people who are 100 pounds overweight, and I will be shocked by it, and I will be moved to never eat another morsel of food in my life so that I never become like them. I just want to say to people watching this is what people in that class think about you. You don't normally get a glimpse. You see them on TV. You see them on their curated social media that someone else is doing for them. These emails are a glimpse of how people in this Epstein class feel about you. They feel you're a slob at a rest stop that they unfortunately have to stop at to get gas.
Sex, eating baby, drinking baby's blood. We kill, we sacrifice the baby, we do sex to the babies. We throw them, when we're dancing with the skulls after the babies are dead.
What skulls?
The baby skulls.
Before?
Yeah, from before. We put it on.
Where did the baby skulls come from?
They come from the baby.
How would you get them from the baby?
We cut the baby's head off. Then we kill the meat from the skulls, and then we put all the meat and cook it. Sometimes we roast it. Sometimes we roast it in the oven. Sometimes we cook it on a frying pan.
You told me there's some restaurants.
Yeah, and there's some restaurants, and there's McDonald's in Hampstead, And East Finchley is a swimming pool, and in East Finchley there's a swimming pool, and the whole East Finchley does it. The boss does it. Everybody does it.
That's what?
The sex, eating baby, and there's McDonald's in there, and there also.
I am Jeff Epstein's niece. My father and stepmother had a baby girl in 1991 who was raised by another family. In 1998, they assigned me her birth date on my birth certificate, which they waited 10 years to file, claiming my stepmother was my biological mother, and finally put me in school in the gifted program. You know, my parents were upstanding citizens. My father was a divorce attorney. It goes back for generations. I remember my father confessing that my oldest brother is 8 years younger than him. They told me that we belonged to the cult of Baal. My great-grandfather, according to my father, was Walt Disney. Before he moved to the United States, his name was Artur Bick, and his twin sister, who he had children with, who I am descended from, was named Minnie. That's where we get Mickey and Minnie Mouse. It's very cute, right? Except for when you consider the abuse that I suspect is still happening to children who go into the entertainment industry.
This administration is collapsing under the weight of their ever-expanding ties to a global child rape ring, and rather than do the right thing, Republicans are trying to change the subject. But please, please do not insult America's intelligence by trying to make this conversation about the Clintons. First of all, the Clintons have publicly called for the government to release all the Epstein files, unlike Donald Trump, who said he would release them all, but then he backtracked. There's millions more documents that have still not been released. And if the logic here is that anyone with ties to Epstein should answer questions about what they knew, I'm all for it. The Clintons want to cooperate. They sent written declarations of what they knew, and they were negotiating to testify under oath. When will President Trump testify? His name appears 5,361 times in the documents released so far. 5,361 times. Democrats want answers from everyone, including and up to the current President of the United States. And that seems to be the biggest difference between you guys and us. We weren't afraid of where these files lead. You are. And if you're afraid of where the files lead, you're not standing with the survivors. You're defending the pedophiles.
Police say 8th graders at a Las Vegas private school are seen on video committing a brutal sexual assault against another student. And it's a very disturbing story. This is 8 News Now at 6. I'm Denise Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. Now, we want to warn you, this is a story which is very sensitive and graphic. 8 News Now investigator Vanessa Murphy piecing it all together.
Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Vaughn Griffith, one of 4 8th graders who Metro Police say took part in the graphic and violent sexual assault of another student. The boys were on a field trip to Costa Rica last April through the Alexander Dawson School, a Las Vegas private school where tuition costs more than $30,000. Sir, what's your true full name?
Vaughn Kendall Griffith.
Griffith, just 15, now charged as an adult for possession of visual presentation depicting sexual conduct of a child. A judge moving him from the juvenile system, calling the crime heinous and egregious and pointing to the safety of the community, while also acknowledging Griffith's upbringing and background as a class president and golf champ. The video is so graphic, the court sealed it. But police described the attack in this arrest report we obtained for more than 2 minutes. The victim screaming and crying as the boys laughed at him, threatened him, and assaulted him. Police say Griffith recorded the video and kept it in his Snapchat account. His defense attorney points to a disparate treatment between how he's treated compared to the other boys, while the Clark County District Attorney's Office is not responding to our inquiry about whether they face charges. Attorneys for the victim say they are confident the system will render justice for him. We also reached out to the Alexander Dawson School, which said in a statement, in part, the school was made aware of serious allegations regarding male middle school students while in their hotel rooms during a class field trip. They take such allegations incredibly seriously and promptly reported them to law enforcement. Police say the victim's mother told the principal, who called police last May. Then in January, a grand jury indicted Griffith. We have not named the other teens believed to be involved because it appears they are not charged in adult court. Griffith pleaded not guilty and is expected back in court in June. Records show he is no longer in custody, but he has many restrictions after a family member posted $20,000 bail.
Show he is no longer in custody, but he has many restrictions after a family member posted $20,000 bail.
Privacy risks of federal agents using surveillance toolkits during immigration enforcement operations.
Yeah, armed with facial recognition on their smartphones and professional camera gear, ICE agents are actually photographing the faces of the people they encounter during their daily operations. So it's all setting a new precedent for street-level surveillance and raising a lot of new privacy concerns.
NBC News AI fellow Jared Perlow joins us now with this story. Good morning, Jared. And Jared, your article this morning reveals how these ICE agents are using these tactics during their interactions, their daily interactions with both possible targets and also the people, the citizens who are observing all of this, right? What's happening out there and how is it different today, how they're using these tools?
Well, so I think it's important to realize that facial recognition itself is not new. We've had this technology for decades. Many people use it, millions of people use it every day when they open up their smartphone or when they go through TSA. But what's happening now with ICE and Border Patrol officers seems like an incredibly new phenomenon, and in decently scary ways, according to the people we talk to. So it seems like there's two different ways they're using it. One, they're using a new app called Mobile Fortify from the Department of Homeland Security. And this app basically allows officers on their smartphone to determine somebody's citizenship status. So we've seen this happen, or we've heard reports of this happening in Minneapolis, for example, where ICE agents will go up to an individual, they'll ask about that person's citizenship status. If they don't have papers on them or documents proving their citizenship, then they can then scan a photo of that person's face using this app, and it will run through its algorithm and determine whether that person is a citizen or not. The other way that we've seen this facial recognition technology being used is to take pictures of observers. So we've talked to people in Minnesota and in Maine who went out to observe ICE. They were at a gas station in some cases. They were looking at what the ICE agents were doing. Then the officers took pictures of them, and in some cases said that their photo was going into a database potentially of domestic terrorists. So it's a pretty concerning situation.
So get so caught up in the motion of time, matter, and space that we lose sight of the spiritual dimensions that are more at play and more significant. And so instead of praying with an earnest focus, we spend a lot of time running around like Chicken Little, complaining that the sky is falling. Not to say that it's not falling. But you see, what is in the meantime Satan's strategy? What is he up to right now? Well, it hasn't changed. From the very beginning, Satan has set out to establish a global empire. We've talked about this in the past. Next week, and when I expand on this whole topic quite a bit, because I've had 2 weeks to do nothing but think about this stuff. But his goal has been to establish a global empire over which he can cruelly rule mankind through the agency of demons, possessed minion by the name of the beast. See, John Trafficking describes this government, this entity that he's going to rule over and rule from. It has 7 heads. And later on in chapter 17, it says the head and 7 heads, there's 7 mountains, which I find is interesting. It has 10 horns, which refers to nations or dominions, we're told later on. It has 7 crowns, which means it has leaders or rulers that go from 10 down to 7 and ultimately become consolidated into the power of one man. These rulers will give all of their power and authority to this one man who is nothing else but a placeholder, a puppet for Satan. Kind of like, our government has been for the last 4 years. 4 times John talks about this. He said, I saw a beast rising in chapter 13 out of the sea. That means coming out of humanity. That the beast is I believe, a person. Some people think it's a system, a government, but these things are melded together. But he seems to be an individual having 7 heads, 10 horns, and his horns 10 crowns. But most importantly, it says, and on his head are words, names of blasphemy. That his entire orientation of this new governmental agency is to overthrow the kingdom of God, to resist it.
وسع 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 الرماس 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 تعال حتى تحت هنا حتى هنا تحت هنا تحت عندي تحت عندي
لا هذول بيصيروا طبيب استنى شوي استنى
حبيبي يابا ابو خالد حبيبي يابا سبتوني يابا قلت لنا عندي والله بدي انا عندنا ما فيش العندي الله يرحمه قلت لنا عندي
خليك معايا قبال
البنات الصغار وين؟ شوف البنات الصغار.
An Israeli strike left Palestinians in central Gaza scrambling to remove casualties. Video shows Palestinians running toward people trapped in the rubble, trying to rescue them. On Saturday, in a separate attack, Israeli strikes killed at least 31 people, including 6 children, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, which is the highest day's death toll in over 2 months. The strikes come as Gaza's only border crossing with Egypt reopened partially on Monday after being closed for nearly 2 years, according to an Israeli security official. The deaths come despite a ceasefire that went into effect mid-October.
Has to be some common force that's been overseeing all of this and that's been orchestrating all this. Because, right. You're born, you play a part, you die, someone else born plays a part. There's got to be some orchestration. Because if people are being born and they know that although they're playing a part in advancing this cult agenda, they ain't going to be here, well, in theory, to see it reach fruition. I mean, what's going on? There has to be another force. And this was the point from the mid-1990s when I first came to the United States to talk on these subjects, to nobody, by the way. I had this strange experience of 12 days, 12 times within 15 days, when I was traveling around America talking to nobody, people came up to me, 12 different people, and told me the same story, that they'd seen someone who appeared to be human, then change shapeshift into a reptilian form and then go back again. And again, back burner, you go, the one thing you don't do, unless you're in a box, and unless you've, from previous research, you know it's nonsense, you don't dismiss it.
At the crux of the theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind? Or
well, I haven't heard that, but
Is that supposed to be a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, you know, if I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put myself out there.
And they see this connection with their aspirations to be truly independent, which is exacerbated by the fact that in the Western elites, there is a strong desire to freeze the current unfair state of things in international affairs. For centuries, they've been stuffing their stomachs with human flesh and they've been stuffing their pockets with money, but they must realize that this ball of vampires is about to end.
They make a hole in and they tie string around and then they put it all around the body, but they're naked, and they got this tattoo on the private with like little piercings.
Okay.
Not like earrings, but like little gold piercings around their private.
Yeah.
And they all dance around with skulls on in the church there.
Okay.
So they have skulls, like the teachers and the staff, they got 20 skulls each.
And how do you know they've got 20 each?
Yes, because I counted once. They were like, there's one here, and then there's one here, and there's one on the neck here. Like they look like skulls everywhere, on the knees, on the elbows. It looks like armor.
Okay. So if I was to try and find these skulls, where would I find them?
Yes, in the church.
Where
in the church? So there's secret rooms. They got secret rooms.
Go on. Tell me, how do I find the secret?
So when you go in the secret rooms, because they hide it in loads of places.
Would you be able to help me find them, would you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so they just hide them anywhere. They just hide it like in one place, then they move to other place, then they move to other place. It's just...
Okay, so I go into the church now.
Yes, and they hide, usually they hide it in their houses. Because they have parties in their houses.
Okay.
Because Mr. Hollings, my teacher, he lives in Highgate.
Right.
Yes. You can see his house because his Porsche, he got Porsche and it's just at the front of his house.
Okay. So
our bigger concern is that there's still a lot that's redacted, even in what we're seeing.
But first, let me say that today I saw a worldwide trafficking ring with people in other countries sourcing young children for Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, in the documents I saw, we got pictures and their names. They're talking about sourcing girls. There's people in Paris, there's people in Russia, there's people in Czech sourcing girls for Jeffrey Epstein, and then other people talking about these girls being sent to them. They refer to them as, you know, we're dropping the child off. I mean, it's really gross, Jake, on how these people are talking about this stuff in text message and email. I think the American people need to see it and understand that this is a worldwide network that Jeffrey Epstein was running.
What we did get was another episode in her long-running campaign for clemency from President Trump. And President Trump could end that today. He could rule out clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell the monster. He could rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell the monster. The question for all of us today is, why hasn't he done that, and why won't he do that?
But I am here to tell you that House Democrats, specifically on the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee, as we do have Pam Bondi coming before us here in a minute, we will not be deterred. We will not be distracted. We know who it is that needs to be held accountable, and we will go in and we will make sure that we continue to dig. This will not stop us because his co-conspirator decided that she was going to try to play games with us this morning. I got news for you, Ms. Maxwell. We're not done. We're going to continue to go.
There are now at least 9 or 10 other countries across the world that have opened investigations or forced their leaders to step down because of their mere association with Jeffrey Epstein. And the United States government is engaged in an active cover-up of the largest sex trafficking scandal and influence peddling scandal in the history of the United States, and Donald Trump is right at the center of it. And the person who is living to provide the evidence, who knows what is going on, is trying to invoke the Fifth to buy her clemency. So let's be clear on what we saw here today. This was an effort to essentially try to secure her pardon by keeping her mouth shut. And we will not allow this silence to stand.
Raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Congresswoman, you sat before Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
I will claim my time. I'm not going to get the gut for her theatrics.
The time belongs to the critics, and we have no time to go back.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. We appreciate the thought. And I would argue the central issue in the last election, the presidential election, was securing the border. The gentleman from Arizona who knows something about securing the border is providing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for being here today. In 2022, Lafarge, which is a French cement company, pled guilty in U.S. federal court to participate in a criminal conspiracy with ISIS.
Many people in the world, they are looking at what's happening in our country, what's happening in our struggle for our interests, and here is an important thing. Why is it happening? Not because we are formally a BRICS member or we have some traditional relations with Africa, which is also important as well. But the gist of it is different. The gist of it is that the so-called golden billion for centuries, for 500 years, they have practically lived off of other peoples. They were ripping apart these poor peoples, poor nations of Africa. They exploited Latin America. They exploited the countries of Asia. And of course, no one forgets this. And I have a feeling that it's not even about the leaders of these countries, even though it is a very important thing, but the common people of these countries. In their heart, they can feel what's happening. They can see our struggle for our independence, for our true sovereignty.
When you constantly know that whatever you know, there's always more to know, you're constantly seeking what it is you don't know. What I've seen with so much of the alternative media, especially a lot of mainstreamers who've come in since COVID, is you get so far and you go from your little myopic prison, seeing the world in a certain way, and you go, there's a conspiracy going on, and it's political, and it's corporate, and it's banking, stop. And that's where so much of the alternative media is. It's become an eddy going round and round while the river of knowledge flows past it. And when you are constantly saying, with some humility, whatever I know, there's more to know, you're constantly seeking what it is you don't know. And the synchronicity of my life also has driven me deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole.
This is a gruesome story, too. Lancaster parents have been sentenced to life in prison for the brutal murders of their children.
And those details are disturbing. Investigators say they decapitated their kids and then forced their younger kids to look at their bodies. Eyewitness News reporter Leo Stallworth is live in Lancaster with all the details, plus how a family friend is reacting to all of this. Leo.
Well, I'm shaking my head because just hearing you talk about what happened here, the level of evil surrounding this particular story, in my humble opinion, would even make Satan shiver. And the judge, when she handed down the sentence in an Antelope Valley courtroom here this morning, she was visibly outraged. As for the family friend, folks, there aren't any words. There are no words. You have no words to wrap your arms around this level of horror.
I don't think anyone does. How? How do you put into words that 2 children were beheaded?
40-year-old Maurice Taylor Sr. and 44-year-old Natalie Brothwell, both convicted of the unspeakable, horrendous murders of their 12-year-old son and 13-year-old daughter at a home in the 45,000 block of Century Circle in Lancaster in 2020. The parents also convicted of child endangerment, forcing their 8- and 9-year-old sons to view the mangled bodies of their deceased siblings. As the judge handed down the sentence to both parents, life behind bars, no parole, she basically told them what they did was absolutely despicable.
This stays with all of us. This is never going to wash off. I don't care how long you two have been doing this, this will never wash off.
Ellen Sr. in a picture with her friend Natalie saying she can't fathom why Natalie was complicit in her own children's vicious murders. She adds Natalie and the children's father had a violent relationship for years, and she begged her friend to leave, but she refused.
She was doing what we were raised to believe. You stand by your man, you have a family, and you raise your children.
Ellen reading a letter she wrote to her friend Natalie on camera.
Natalie, I forgive you. I forgive you for believing in a system that should have protected you. I forgive you for believing in a religion that told you to stay.
Now, all of this stuff would be little more than cryptic scribblings were it not for the book of Daniel and the visions that God gave to him. And it's kind of interesting because when you come to the end of the book of Revelation, John is told, don't seal the book because it's for the time of the end. In other words, it's supposed to be understandable. It's supposed to be read. It's supposed to be able to look at it and see this transpiring within the world. But at the end of Daniel's book, which predates it by 700 years, it said, seal these things and don't let people understand them, in other words, until you come to the end. And so we have kind of a cipher really given to us. Daniel is a kind of a cipher for Revelation. We can look at what God said in Daniel and we can understand more clearly what he's talking about in Revelation. And what Daniel told us that in his visions of the end time, he said there will be 4 dominating world empires, and we are told who they are within Daniel's prophecy. The first is the Babylonian Empire. The second is the Persians, who overthrew the Babylonians, and the Persians then were overthrown by the Greeks, and the Greeks were overthrown by the Romans. Final. It's easy. But then he says there's a final empire, excuse me, that appears to rise out of the remnants of that Roman Empire. He says of it in chapter 7 of Daniel, it'll be different from all other kingdoms. It shall devour the whole earth. In other words, it's a truly global power. It'll trample it and break it in pieces. So he'll destroy wonderfully is one of the ways that Daniel puts it. It has 10 horns and 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and it will be partly strong and partly fragile. They will mingle, but they will not adhere to one another. Just as iron does not mix with clay, and later on in chapter 8, he says that a king shall arise with having fierce features who understands sinister schemes. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. In other words, he'll be empowered by Satan. He destroys fearfully and shall prosper and thrive, and he shall destroy the mighty, also the holy people, through his rule. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper. And he shall exalt himself. Paul later tells us he will exalt himself to be unequal with God. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. So we're told these things about this entity that's coming.
This is Milo. Pets are family. But every year, 10 million go missing. And the way we look for them hasn't changed in years. Until now. One post of a dog's photo in the Ring app starts outdoor cameras looking for a match. Search Party from Ring uses AI to help families find lost dogs. Since launch, more than a dog a day has been reunited with their family. Be a hero in your neighborhood with Search Party. Available to everyone for free right now.
This will include the largest ever rollout of live facial recognition technologies across England and Wales. We know this approach works. In London,
for Aussies, a good night's sleep starts at the front door. New home security cameras don't just record, they tell you what happened.
I want to know what the bumps in the night might be, or if the dog's going around just chasing things in the yard.
Mum of two, Justine Firth, is testing out the most talked about feature, video descriptions.
The app's telling me that there's a person carrying a box, and that's the time and date. But it's also got a really detailed description.
Brands like Arlo, Riolink and Amazon are supercharging their cameras with AI. But the best part, these new technologies won't cost you a fortune, with prices starting from $119.
Now AI can understand what's captured in a video and actually describe that to you in text, and then send you a message explaining what the video is, so you don't have to actually go and watch the video.
Aussie homes are getting smarter. About 31% now run a security system. Well, soon your camera will be able to recognise familiar faces. And if your dog goes missing, it'll send alerts to people nearby to help find your pooch. No matter what you buy, the biggest tip...
You want to also make sure you look at how much the subscription costs are, because you'll need to pay that every month.
At nearly 6 feet tall, the newest police recruit on patrol in the city of Wuhu commands attention, less because of the uniform than the 6 high-definition cameras and advanced sensors under that hat that allow the AI-powered robot called R001 to manage the flow of traffic and people in the streets and around the clock. It looks just like a real person at first sight, says this pedestrian. Real-life robocops like this have been rolled out in other Chinese cities too, including Chengdu, Hangzhou, and Shanghai. One of the police instructors says the robots work alongside human traffic officers.
The medical examiner still trying to figure out the cause of death of 39-year-old Michelle Montgomery, the mother of 4, who was found dismembered in Brooklyn on Sunday.
Night workers found her at the Boren Quinn public houses in Bushwick. And tonight, we're going to hear from her life partner, the father of her youngest child, just 10 months old.
Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles is live in Bushwick with our lead story tonight. Darla.
Good evening, Bill and Liz. We are told that 39-year-old Michelle Montgomery did things like make gift baskets and go all out for decorations for her children during the holidays. So her family really is perplexed as to find out who might have wanted to bring her harm. They know that she was having dinner and hanging out with friends here near the intersection of Flushing Avenue and Bushwick Avenue on Saturday night. And then just hours later, her body was found 5 blocks up the road on Bushwick Avenue in a building that she had no connection to, dismembered and deceased.
She left this house vibrant, happy, and alive.
This is what Michelle Montgomery posted just after midnight Sunday. By 9:30 a.m., the 39-year-old mother of 4 was dead. Her body discovered in the basement of a Brooklyn apartment building, dismembered in a garbage bag.
That was hard. I broke down because I still can't believe it. Still.
Montgomery's gruesome murder, a total and utter shock to her family. She and her life partner, Anthony Echevarria, have a 10-month-old son.
It has been one of the hardest things to really look at. It's watching him look for her and knowing that she's not coming back.
He says she left home around 9:30 Saturday night to hang out with friends. Family members say at one point she was hanging out at a local restaurant where she posted this video of herself dancing and having a good time. But they say she has no ties to Berriquin houses on Bushwick Avenue, where a memorial with her picture and candles have been placed in honor of where her remains were found by a maintenance worker.
It's so extreme. Like, I don't even know how she ended up over there in that building, nonetheless, that she ended up in a garbage bag. That is, like, mad extreme.
Echevarria pointing out these TikTok videos of her fun-loving spirit and her dedication as a mother.
Super mom. She made sure none of these kids wanted for nothing. Nothing. They always got what they needed. They always got what they wanted.
She was active on social media, posting just last week, "Spend time with the people you love before it's too late." And back in December, nearly 2 months to the day of her murder, she wrote on Facebook, "If I died tomorrow, my Facebook wall would be filled with posts about broken friendships. Please don't use my death for some sympathy. If you love me now."
Every day we came, got up, took care of these kids, we took care of each other. Nothing wrong. Nothing.
Now Montgomery leaves behind a 19-year-old son, an 11 and 12-year-old daughter, and her 10-month-old son. At this hour, the NYPD still not yet publicly identified any suspects, nor how she actually passed away. If you have any information about this incident, please call Crime Stoppers.
На днях премьер-министр Польши Дональд Туск заявил, что Джеффри Эпштейн, скорее всего, был агентом российских спецслужб. Якобы то, что там творилось у него на острове, это становилось компроматом, который передавался или оказался в руках российских спецслужб и может быть использован для влияния на западные элиты, и в том числе на Дональда Трампа. Эпштейн российский шпион или сотрудничал с российскими спецслужбами?
Вас уже в желтизну заносит.
Ну, это то, что сейчас обсуждается. Это вопрос, это отсылает к первому вопросу. Задача российской дипломатии.
Это не обсуждается. Этим пытаются вызвать раздражение в тех кругах, тех стран, которые кому-то в политкругах других стран не очень нравятся. Пытаются и против республиканской партии это использовать в США, и против демократической. В Европе там уже отставки каких-то деятелей на дипломатическом поприще. В Англии там какой-то лорд очередной, где-то в трусах его показали, и он гордо ушел в отставку. Ну, понимаете, если говорить в принципе о том, каким влиянием обладала вот эта группка на острове Эпштейна, то, наверное, любая разведка сочла бы за честь завербовать этого Эпштейна.
Получить материалы какие-то.
Но нас это абсолютно не интересовало никогда, и мы там пытаются искать какие-то русские следы во всей этой куче.
Ну и находят
миллионов страниц. Ну,
упоминания, скажем так, да, российские упоминания фамилий, да.
Как пел Высоцкий, проникновение наше по планете особенно заметно вдалеке.
То есть нет. Вы ничего не знаете о связи?
Да я даже не хочу это обсуждать, потому что эта тема не имеет отношения к нашей дипломатической работе. Эта тема имеет отношение к обнажению того лица, который называется коллективный Запад, и который называется глубинное, даже теперь уже не государство, а глубинный союз, который руководит всем Западом и пытается руководить всем миром. То, что это вообще ниже человеческого понимания, то, что это чистой воды сатанизм, ну, наверное, нормальному человеку объяснять не нужно.
Can you just imagine what all of these kids are going to learn in history class in like 50 to 100 years? Because it's going to start with people voted for a man because they thought that he would make America better, even though it was known that he was guilty for sexual assault and defamation after slamming the victim, trying to pretend that he didn't do anything wrong. So people voted for him anyways because they wanted to protect their daughters from men in women's bathrooms, even though that's never been an issue. But he was able to convince everybody that this was an issue. And then he did a horrible job because he wanted to pretend that this world global pandemic wasn't a thing. So everybody got really sick, and then the economy took a giant shit. So then people didn't vote for him the second time, and he told everybody that the election was rigged. So then he convinced all these people who loved him and were obsessed with him to go to the Capitol and to riot, bring guns. He started beating officers there and throwing things, and one even shot off a gun. But then Trump was able to convince everybody that he was still great, even though he's had 6 bankruptcies, even maybe more. I don't even know at this point. And then people voted for him again, and then the election wasn't rigged. Immediately pardoned every single person that brought a gun and stormed the Capitol, which is like crazy. And he got Roe versus Wade overturned, so women's abortion rights went back to the states, and all of the red states had such large abortion bans that women were actually dying in the hospitals because they couldn't get the healthcare that they needed. And then for some reason, he started just like bombing all the boats in the ocean because he claimed that all these boats had drugs in it, and he really was just killing people. And then he decided, let's kidnap this dictator in another country and bring him back here, and then we'll just have one of our administration members take care of that country. And we didn't hear anything about it afterwards. And then he convinced everybody that brown people were the problem, mainly Mexican, but kind of anybody of color, especially if they were speaking a different language. He hired all of these white supremacists and gave them a $50,000 bonus, even though he told everybody in America that we were in so much debt. They were just detaining people, and then they would get really angry and they would shoot people in the street with no repercussions because Trump and his vice presidents, J.D. Vance, told everybody that they had complete immunity. And then the biggest sex trafficking scandal in history came out with 3 million pages, and that president was in it 38,000 times, but he told everybody that he wasn't in it. Then a reporter asked him and said, hey, what do you have to say about all of these victims that feel like they're not getting justice? And he said, you need to smile more. You need to smile more while you're talking about sexual assault. And also, I'm not in them, even though I'm in them 38,000 times. So we should move on to things that are more important, like healthcare. Even though he took away child cancer research for children. It's going to be so interesting, and our children are going to read these books and be like, what the fuck did you guys do in America? And I'm going to say, I didn't vote for this.
And our children are going to read these books and be like, what the fuck did you guys do in America? And I'm going to say, I didn't vote for this.